Okay, so the first question is the Meshech Chochmah. You've heard of the Meshech Chochmah, Meir Simcha, Ohr Somayach. The Ohr Somayach. It's called the Meshech Chochmah because of the sefer he wrote on Chumash when he was a brilliant, profound sefer, and he wrote that when he was 18 years old. And then he wrote a sefer on Gemara on the Rambam called the Ohr Somayach, which is a classic. And that's why the Meir Simcha of the Vince, he's called alternatively the Ohr Somayach. He's known as the Ohr Somayach, and his little hobby was the Meshech Chochmah, which is one of the most profound svarim written on Chumash. That was when he was 18 years old. So the Meshech Chochmah says like this. He asks the following question. Pharaoh has these dreams and the dreams ultimately are going to represent prosperity, and they're going to represent famine, right? What does he see first? He sees cows and he sees wheat. And when you think of food, which is a more basic staple? Wheat is a more basic staple than meat, right? Okay. So Meshech Chochmah, so why does he see them in this order? So the Meshech Chochmah answers the question based on a Yerushalmi, in Baba Metzia, the Gemara Yerushalmi of Baba Metzia, and it's also a Medrash that appears. Alexander the Great appears all over Shas, by the way, quite a few times. He's called Alexandrus Mokdon. Alexandrus is obviously Alexander. Mokdon is the Macedonian, Alexander Macedonian. So the Gemara says that he had philosophical debates with the Chachamim, and he met, the Gemara says in Yuma, he met Shimon HaTzadik once, and he what do you call it? He once went traveling. Alexander went all over the world, and he once came to this country or a region. It was called the place of women. Right, there's only women there. I don't think it means only women were there because there wouldn't be anybody there. I think that means that it was being run by women, right? It was being run. No, it actually worked very well. You know, they didn't have any wars. You know, everything they discussed everything, and the speed limit was 28 miles an hour. You know, so there were no traffic accidents. So he gets to this country of women, and the women come out and they send out and he was captured. He was conquering the entire world. The women came out and they said to Alexander the Great, listen. If you defeat us, it's a big deal. History is going to record you beat a bunch of women. And if we defeat you, it's going to be even worse. So he said, okay, let me have some bread. Forget it. I'm not going to fight you. Just bring out some food. So they came out with a golden loaf of bread. He says, I can't eat gold. He said, oh, you want regular bread? What, in your country you don't have regular bread? You had to come all the way out here to get regular bread? So Alexander retreated, and he wrote on the gates of the city, he wrote, I, Alexander the Great, was a fool until I came to the country of women, and they wizened me up. And I got news for you guys. Every husband should write that on his front door, right? Because most men were dorks until they got married, right? And when I got married, my wife wizened me up. And if a man would be honest, he'd write that on his front door. No man's going to do that, obviously, right? But if he was really honest, he'd say, I was worth very little until I married this lady behind the door over here, right? In a moment of honesty, every husband will admit it, but he ain't going to put it on his door. He's not putting it on his door. You walk on my door, you can see a big picture of Michael Jordan. You're not going to see that on my door. So what do you call it? So Alexander goes traveling, and he gets to this country, and he sees the king, and he says to the king, I want to see how you apply justice in your city, in your country. So the first case comes to him. Two guys come to court. They're arguing before the king. They're arguing. There are different versions of the case. The one guy says, I sold this guy a heap of dung, a fertilizer. Right? The guy says, I bought a heap of fertilizer from this guy, and I was digging through it, and I found some gold coins or whatever it was. I found a treasure in there. It says, I bought the fertilizer, the treasure's not mine, the treasure belongs to him. The other guy says, listen, I sold the fertilizer, whatever goes with it. He found the treasure belongs to him. So they're arguing back. He says, no, it belongs to you. He says, no, it belongs to you. Like Alexander, I can't believe this argument. So the king says to him, you have a son? He says, yeah. He says, you have a daughter? He says, yeah. He says, let them get married and give the treasure to them. And the two of them walk out happily. And he turns to Alexander, he says, what would you have done? He says, I would have killed them both and taken the treasure for myself. So the king said to Alexander, do you have rain in your land? He goes, yeah, lots of rain, a very fertile area. Says, do you have livestock? Do you have animals, cows? He says, yeah. He says, the rain in your land falls in the merit of the animals. It does not fall in the merit of that kind of judicial system. When you're running a country like that, you don't deserve rain. It's falling in the merit of your livestock. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara does not say what happened to that king afterwards. The Gemara just says that that's what he said to Alexander the Great. Says the Meshech Chochmah, based on that, you have a country of rampant corruption. You got Egypt. You got a guy who's thrown into jail. An innocent man is thrown into jail without a trial. He's thrown into jail for life. He got out after 12 years, but theoretically he's thrown into jail. There's no trial. He's innocent, and he's thrown into jail. We got absolute corruption in Egypt. It says the cows come first as a message that when they do survive during the years of famine, it's going to be in the merit of the cows, not in the merit of the people. That's what the Meshech Chochmah says. And because theoretically, the wheat, the dreams of the wheat should come first. Okay, number one. Number two, if you look at Pasuk Yud Daled, so this is where we got to yesterday, on page 224. So, page 224, Yosef takes a shave, and he comes to Pharaoh. Now you have to understand, number one, you're Yosef being rushed out of the cave, of the pit. You know, and you know, you can understand that a guy's going to be a little bit nervous, a little bit rattled, a little everything. Look at the poise that Yosef has. He realizes, I'm going to stand in front of a king. I have to, what do you call it? I have to shave, and I can't go up. He probably hasn't had a haircut for 10, 12 years. I can't go in looking like this. And he's poised, and he changes his garments. So he comes to Pharaoh. Vayomer Pharaoh el Yosef, Chalom chalamti upoter enoso. I dreamt a dream, and there's nobody to interpret it. Vani shamati alecha lemor tishma chalom lithorzo. I heard that you interpret dreams. Now, you're standing in front of a monarch. Your entire future now depends on what you're about to say. And it could go in a lot of directions here. You know, you could, everything is at stake and everything's on the line right now. When Yosef comes to Pharaoh, it's all on the line. Pharaoh says, I heard you interpret dreams. The first word out of Yosef's mouth, what does he do? He contradicts Pharaoh. That's not a really good, if you're going in for a job application, you're applying for a job, and you're meeting the head of the law firm, and you're trying to get hired, and the guy says, oh, I hear you're from Cincinnati. No, I'm actually from Pittsburgh. And I wouldn't do that. I would say, oh, well, Cincinnati's a nice town. I could, you know, I might have wanted to live there. One way or another, agree with him. Just agree and laugh at his jokes and don't be quiet. That's what you do. That's what we do with that. It is a monarch. What is Yosef? Vayan Yosef es Pharaoh lemor. First word out of his line. Biladai, it's not me. You're wrong. You said I interpret dreams. You're wrong. Elokim yanesh Pharaoh. God is going to do it. God's the one who's going to is the one who tells you is going to tell you what's going on. It has nothing to do with me. God put words in my mouth. Okay. So Pharaoh says, okay, we'll continue from here. And so Pharaoh starts telling him the dream, and you'll notice that when Pharaoh mentions the details to Yosef, some of the details that the way Pharaoh tells it over are different from the way the Torah reported originally. Now there are two approaches here. The Ramban says, yeah, the Torah is not precise, it changes details. That's what the Ramban says. Sometimes the Torah leaves out parts of stories, doesn't tell you the whole story over again. The Medrash, if I'm not mistaken, the Medrash says Pharaoh started changing details because he wanted to test Yosef a little bit. He wanted to test him. So Pharaoh says something like, I'm standing by the edge of the Yaor. And Yosef says, oh, that's not true. You were standing on the Yaor. And Pharaoh made Allah Yaor. He kept correcting him as Pharaoh said the thing. And Pharaoh's like, ooh, the kid's good. And the kid's good. He's mixing up the details. He's like, oh, and Yosef keeps saying, no, that's not what you saw. This is what you saw. No, that's not what you saw. This is what you saw. So Pharaoh's already got a sense that Yosef's on the right track. So then Yosef says to him, Vayomer Yosef el Pharaoh, Chalom Pharaoh echadhu. Top of page 2. It's all one dream. Es asher Elokim osa higi the Pharaoh. What God's doing, he told Pharaoh. Now Pharaoh right now is listen, he's in front of the royal court. Pharaoh didn't sit alone. And you got this kid saying in front of the royal court, God's communicating with you, Pharaoh. And Pharaoh's looking around. Anybody hear that? Everybody hear that? Yeah. This is great news for Pharaoh. This just reinforces his position. And then Yosef tells him that the 7 years is all one dream. 7 cows, 7 stalks, and 7 good years. And then there's going to be the 7 thin cows, 7, that's all going to be bad years. There's going to be a famine. There's going to be 7 good years coming of plenty and 7 bad years. That's what Yosef tells Pharaoh. The question is, how did Yosef do that? How did Yosef contradict him? Where does that come from? Okay, Pharaoh says something, Yosef says, no, it's not true. Well, Yosef, come on, a little bit of common sense. It's all online. How does Yosef where does that come from? So the author of Kelm, I think it's the author of Kelm, he says, who was Yosef raised by? He was raised by Yaakov. And Yaakov is, the midah of Yaakov, what's the trait of Yaakov? Is emes. Hey, let's be accurate over here. In other words, it's so embedded in Yosef, the quality of emes that he gets from his father. What you said is not true. What am I going to do? You made a mistake. Oh, so you're from Cincinnati? No, I'm not from Cincinnati. I'm from Pittsburgh. I'm not from Cincinnati. What can I tell you? It's a knee-jerk reaction. I hear something inaccurate. I got to correct it. That's simply not true. I heard you interpret dreams. I don't interpret dreams. God interprets dreams. Why are you saying it? Because that's who I am. What can I tell you? It's the truth. It's the truth. And therefore, Yosef, it's so embedded in him, the chinuch of the home, that's what the child turns into. So Yosef says it, okay? Pharaoh lets it slide. Then comes the real problem. Yosef says to Pharaoh like this, couple of problems here. Verse Lamed Beis, 32. He says, Val hishanos hachalom el Pharaoh pamayim, and because Pharaoh had the dream twice, Ki nochon hadover me'im ha'elokim u'memar elokim la'asosa, because it's prepared by God and it's going to happen imminently. That's why it happened twice. That's why you saw the dream twice. It's imminent. It's about to start. You're going to have 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine, and it's about to start. It's ot. And that's why you had the dream twice. Now, that means that part of the dream interpretation, we'll see later on also. Remember I told you about handwriting analysis? I studied handwriting analysis a little bit. Part of handwriting analysis is not just looking into handwriting. It's looking at where you wrote on the page, how much room you left in the margins. It's a big picture. Dream interpretation is not just about what was said in the dream. It's how you had the dream, when you have the dream. The dream was repeated twice. There's a whole big picture over here. So Yosef says, because he had the dream twice, that's an indication that it's imminent. Anything bother you about that? You have a big question based on that. Yosef says he had the dream twice. That's a sign that it's imminent. You should have a big kasha. Yosef also had 2 dreams. And it certainly wasn't imminent. It was 22 years is not what we call imminent. And he had 2 dreams. So how could he say that the 2 dreams makes it imminent? Good question, right? So the commentators ask this. One of them, Foresight, says, there's a very big difference. This happened in one night. Yosef's dreams were on different nights. Different dreams, different nights is something else. How do you know? Because it's part of dream interpretation. Knowing what means what in a dream. You had 2 dreams in the one night. You went back to sleep. You got up and you went back to sleep. And then you had the same dream. You had the next dream. It's all one dream. And it's imminent. That's what Yosef tells Pharaoh. And now comes the biggest question of all. This is the biggest question of all. Ve'ata, and now, Yere Paro ish novon v'chocham. You got to find a wise man with foresight. V'shisei al eretz Mitzrayim. And you should put him in charge of Egypt. Who's Yosef referring to here? And now, by the way, find a wise man and put him in charge of Egypt. Right? So there are a couple of problems over here. Then he tells Pharaoh, Yaseh Pharaoh v'yafket pekidim, you should appoint people, ala oretz, v'chimesh es eretz Mitzrayim b'sheva shnei hasava. How does he translate v'chimesh? And gather all the food in the approaching good years. V'yikmitzu es kolor, he gives a whole plan of how to go through these 7 years. There are 2 questions here. What's the first question? What is the first question? The biggest question.
Why is he giving instructions?
Yes, excellent. You were brought in here to interpret dreams. I didn't ask you for your advice. Who made you an advisor? Who made you an advisor? What you brought into it, number one. Number two, Yosef clearly is implying that, I'm pretty good for this job, by the way. It'd be like telling you, by the way, you should get somebody from Chicago named Dovid, what do you call it, who lives in Neve Yaakov. That'd be, hint, who are you talking about, right? So the question becomes, well, Yosef, the last time he made his shtadlus, what happened? He made his shtadlus with the Sarah Mashkim, and what happened? He got 2 more years of prison. What, you haven't learned anything yet? You haven't learned anything yet? You're making his shtadlus? Number one. Number two, who made you an advisor? Who asked you to give advice? And number three, why an ish navon v'chacham? A wise man with foresight. I would tell you, you need a guy who's an economist. You need a guy who's good at organization. What's wisdom got to do with this? Ish navon v'chacham, a man who's wise and with foresight. How does the Arts Code translate, by the way? Just curious how they translate this man.
Discerning and wise.
Discerning and wise. Discerning and wise. I would say you need a guy who's got a track record in organization, in agricultural organization. What's it got to do with wise? I don't care how wise he is. I need a guy who's got a track record. So let's answer them one at a time. The first answer is how he can make his shtadlus. And the answer is twofold. Rav Dessler says, as soon as Yosef said, it's not me, it's Hashem. Once you brought Hashem into the picture, so now you can and should make Ishtadlus. The problem with the Shar Mashkim is he never said anything about Hashem. He said, hey, do me a favor, get me out of here. But now you've established, especially in Pharaoh's face, as soon as Pharaoh said to you, and he says, not me, it's Hashem. Okay, that means you are at the level you're supposed to. Now you can make your Hishtadlus, number one. Number two, it could also be that you've just come out of a pit. Earlier, you had gone down into the pit. There was no indication. Remember, we asked the famous question, why did Esther make 2 banquets? She comes to Achashverosh and says, yeah, I want a banquet with you and Haman. So Achashverosh is already in a bad mood. What's she inviting Haman? What's going on between her and Haman? And at the first banquet, what does she do? She goes, okay, ask anything you want. I'll give you anything you want, even up to half the kingdom. I'd like you, yeah, and Haman, yeah, to come to another banquet. Why do you need a second banquet for? And then the second banquet, he says, now what do you want, lady? She says he's a rat. Why didn't you do the first banquet? He asked her, what do you want? Why did the first banquet? What's the answer? What happened between the first and second banquet? That's when Mordechai got to ride on the horse. Esther sees a sign. Haman went down, Mordechai went up. Okay, now things are different. Now it's going to work. Up until that point, when Haman's at the first banquet, he's still the viceroy of the world, and he's still at the pinnacle of his success. I don't know if he's going to be taken out. Once you see a sign from heaven, he's gone down. He's the one leading the horse. Mordechai is on top of the horse. Okay, the scales are shifting. Now the moment is right. What did Yosef the first time? You were thrown down into a pit. You're on your way down. You're still down. What happened now? You're just brought up out of the pit. Oh, you're brought up out of the pit. Now is the time when the Hishtadlus may work. So the sign is there for you to make the Hishtadlus. Answer number one. Question number two was, why does Yosef give advice? Who made you the advisor? Which is a very powerful question. And the answer to that is the word ve'ata, and now. So 8 lines from the bottom. 7 lines from the ve'ata, and now Yeireh Paro ish navon v'chacham. Yosef is telling Paro, now, meaning the timing of the dream is also part. I'm not giving you advice. I'm interpreting the dream further. Why did you have the dream just now? This is part of the interpretation. Part of the interpretation of the timing. Remember I told you there are different aspects of a dream. There's how many times, that's when you had it, that's how you had it, what you saw in the dream. Why did you see the dream now? You saw the dream now because the interpretation is that you're obviously supposed to do something about it. Hire somebody, get somebody out, they organize the land and so on and so forth. So Yosef's not acting as he's still not an advisor. What is he? He's an interpreter. Yosef is interpreting the dream. Therefore, he has the right to do that. Why an ish navon v'chacham? Why a wise man? Why not an organizational genius? Right? There is such thing, right? There are the organizational geniuses. Why a wise man? So what does Pirkei Avos say? Ezehu chacham. And Pirkei Avos says, who's a wise man? Halomed b'kol adam is one of them. The other time is, what does it say? Haroa es hanolad. Somebody who can foresee ramifications. A wise man is somebody who sees what the ramifications of various actions and behaviors are going to be. It's not just seeing what's in front of you. What is this going to lead to? Where's this going to end up? If you're in the middle of 7 years of plenty, where you got more grain than you know what to do with, it's very difficult to see past that and really believe that there's going to be a famine coming. A guy may be good at organization, but he's got to be good at organization. He sees there's a reason to be organized. A navon v'chacham is somebody who understands, hey, this isn't going to last forever. Don't we do that as individuals? When you're doing well in business and you're making a lot of money, if you were really smart and you had a little bit of foresight, you'd say, well, based on the economy and based on what's happening, I really should take precautions for the future. But sometimes when you're living, on the fat of the land, you're so caught up in the prosperity, you don't see any possibility that this could all change. So you need a navon v'chacham, you need somebody with the foresight to say, listen, things are good right now, but listen, there are 7 years of famine coming. I got to be able to see through this. Whereas a guy who's an organizational genius, he may not feel it. We'll organize it a certain way, but he's not anticipating what's coming down the line. And therefore Yosef makes this suggestion. Yeah.
I mean, this is a strong thing that happened to the Jewish people, that including the Chofetz Chaim, that they knew it was coming to Europe, something big. And
some of the people knew. Some of the people, or at least sensed it.
Yeah. My great-grandfather said, stinks. This is what it stinks.
It's not good. And then some people acted on it, some people didn't.
Yeah.
And you sense something's coming. Listen, but you really think that the Germans are going to turn into savages? You really think so? I mean, and some people said, yeah. And those other people got out. The other people said, I don't believe it's really going to. And so you have to take a precaution. You need a navon v'chacham. Now, look what happens. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
It's just that, I don't know how far this goes in the nowadays Mexico, United States, and so on and so different countries in which, it's scary.
Yeah, you don't know what's happening, and we don't know what's going to be. We have no guarantees of anything. We have no guarantees that Israel is the final step before the redemption. We have no guarantees. This may be just a blip on the map, on the way to that. We don't know. We have no guarantees. Sometimes you start seeing, I think it's time to get out of Venezuela. If I was living in Venezuela, I would get out. The writing's on the wall. I think that Venezuela is not a great place to live right now, but it could be anywhere. So it depends how much your foresight. Sometimes the Kodesh Baruch Hu blinds us. Kodesh Baruch Hu doesn't let you see. Now, he wants to keep Jews there. Not everybody saw. And that's because of blindness. That Kodesh Baruch Hu wants. I want that the Jewish people can get a patch right now. So it is manipulated to a certain extent. The Chofetz Chaim certainly foresaw it. Rabbi Meir Simcha, the Ohr Somayach, writes in 1926 that Jews are going to call Germany Berlin, Jerusalem, and that's where the trouble is going to start. He writes this 20 years. It's like when you read the Meshech, I have to read it inside for you. After Biblinet, I'll try to remember to bring it in. It sounds like prophecy. We know the only reason we know it's not prophecy is because prophecy has ended since the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Otherwise, you'd think that you're hearing a prophet speaking. The words of the Meshech Chochmah are chilling, absolutely chilling. Absolutely, and it cannot be believed that a man in the 20th century wrote it. And it's absolutely, you'd think it's Moshe Rabbeinu making a prophecy. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. Yirmiyahu Hanavi making a prophecy. It's unbelievable. So there is a certain amount. So Yosef says you need a navon v'chacham. You got to be able to see through the smoke screen of all the prosperity. Now look what happens. I'm going to tell you up shot now. It is a phenomenal. This is so phenomenal that it's chilling. So Pharaoh is happy. The Meforshim say Pharaoh is happy because this makes him look really good, like God's communicating to him about his economy. And all the servants say it's good too. What I see in this is like if the boss is happy, the boss turns around and says, "Isn't this a good idea, guys?" "Oh yeah, great idea. Yeah, boss. Yeah, good idea. Baby, how about it? Yeah." Nobody's about to say no. Yeah, great. Oh, I was thinking the same thing, boss. Yeah, boss. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Vayomer Paro elav odav hanimtza kazei isha sheruach Elokim bo. Is there a man around here who's got the Spirit of God in him like that? He doesn't wait for an answer. You'll notice that. No, he doesn't say that. He immediately turns to Yosef. That wasn't a question. Right? It wasn't. I used to say that to my kids. The kids were fighting. I say, "Why did you hit him?" That wasn't a question. He started answering. That wasn't a question. Why'd you do it? Why'd you take her? Why did you take her sweater? That was not a question. Now, my daughters hated it. There was a statement. You shouldn't have taken it. There was a statement in question form. Paro says, "Hey, is there anybody around here like that?" Vayomer Paro el Yosef. He turns to Yosef. He doesn't wait for an answer. Since God has told you that there's nobody as wise as you, since God has told you this, there's nobody as wise as you. So I saw the Dubna Magid, Rav Yaakov Krantz was his name. He was a phenomenal, he always came up, for every situation, he came up with a mashal. A mashal is a parable. And he lived in the 18th century. The Vilna Gaon used to ask him to give him Musar. The Vilna Gaon would give him. So somebody once asked him, how do you always come up with a parable? You always have a parable. For every situation, you come up with a brilliant parable. There's a book called The Parables of the Dubna Magid. He was known as unbelievable. You read his books, it's very phenomenal. So somebody said, how do you always come up with a parable? So he says, I'll give you a parable. He says, I'll give you a parable. So he said, what's the parable? He says, the king is riding through the forest. And he sees there's an archer there, right? He sees there's an archer there. And he looks at the guy's got a target. He's got every arrow is right in the bullseye. Every arrow is right in the bullseye. He can't believe it. So he says, wow, you're unbelievable. You're unbelievable archer. So he goes, well, I'm not really that good. He says, so what's your secret? He says, my secret is first I shoot the arrows, then I draw the bullseye. The guy says, first I get the parable, then I fit it into the story. I hear the story, I find the parable. First I get the parable, then I fit it in somehow. That's what he said. So he has this one parable about this king. There's a king, once they have a contest with the best archer in the country. And this archer is no fool, right? He knows you don't beat the king. Golfing, when you go golfing with the boss, you lose, right? If you golf with the boss, you lose. On the other hand, he has a reputation. He doesn't want to lose his reputation. He's the best archer. So the king shoots, and the king gets near the bullseye. This guy shoots, and he's far from the bullseye. He makes sure to be farther away from the bullseye than the king. The king shoots a second arrow, and he also hits it near the bullseye. This guy shoots a second arrow and he splits it, right? He splits the first arrow. He shoots the second arrow, he misses it. He's far from the bullseye, but he splits his own arrow right down the middle. The king shoots the third arrow and he's again close to the bullseye. This guy shoots the third arrow and again he splits the second arrow right down the middle. So everybody sees, yeah, you lost. Yeah, well, we know who the real archer is. Right? And I forgot what he was using that as a parable for, but it was a great parable. Right? You know what that reminds me of? You know there was a guy in the United States in World War II who was the top sniper. I forgot his name. What was the guy's? He was a top sniper, and the Germans also had a sniper. And these two guys were going after each other. They were the top snipers. And the American sniper eventually killed the German sniper, right? You know how he killed him? He shot, and it turns out that the German sniper had him in his sights also, and the bullet went through the sight thing and killed the German, which means that the German had him in his sights. He was a split second quicker, right? Yikes. I remember that he got the guy, and the bullet went through the thing and killed him, which means that if the sight was trained on him, that means he was in the other guy's sights also. Right? That was what do you call it? So what do you call it? So the Dubna Magid says there's a guy who's a merchant, and he's selling very expensive merchandise. And when the city officials hear about it, they hit him with a very high tax bracket. They put him into a very high tax bracket. And the guy comes to the city official and says, hey, what do you hit me with such a, you're selling expensive merchandise. He says, selling expensive merchandise, I got this all on credit. I got this all on consignment. I got to sell this stuff. I don't have any. He said, yeah, but if you weren't wealthy, they wouldn't have trusted you with such expensive merchandise to begin with. So pay the taxes. So the Vilna Gaon says, the Maggid says, Pharaoh says, since Hashem, Pharaoh said to Yosef, you interpret dreams. Yosef says, it's not me, it's Hashem. Pharaoh saying to Yosef, yeah. But since Hashem gave it to you, you must be the wise one. Because the wisdom is given to a wise man. Could you imagine? You have a choice. Somebody's going to hear a dream. Somebody's going to get a dream about what's going to be happening in our economy. Is it going to be, you have a choice. It's going to be Reb Moshe Feinstein Zatzal, Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal, or a drunk who staggered out of a tavern in Belfast, Ireland. Right? Now, which one of them do you think that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to trust? It could be anybody. The wisdom comes from Hashem, but who do you think he's going to give the wisdom to? The smart money's on Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, right? It's not going to give it to some drunk from a tavern. Why? Because Hashem gives wisdom to the wise people. So Pharaoh is saying, yeah, I know Hashem gave you the dreams. But the fact that he gave you the dreams, that's the sign that you're wise. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given it. He didn't give it to my clowns over here who couldn't get the interpretations. He gave it to you. That's the sign that you're the wise man. Now listen to this. This is just mind-boggling. And you have to see it inside. Pasuk Mem, 228. Pasuk Mem, it's 4 lines from the top. Pharaoh says to him, there's nobody as wise as you. Now watch this sequence. 2 psukim we're going to read. Ata TL, basically, you're going to be in charge of my house. Al picha yishak kol ami, my entire nation is going to be run based on your word of mouth. Rak hakise egdal mimeka. Only my throne is going to be bigger than you. I'm the only one who outranks you. The whole country, everybody runs based on you. Vayomer Paro Yosef. Paro says to Yosef, Re'ei nasati yoschal kol eretz Yisrael. Look, I've put you in charge of all of Egypt. 2 psukim. There's a big question here. Paro in Pasuk Mem says, you're going to be in charge of everything. Who's talking? Who is talking? Paro. So why does the next pasuk begin with Vayomer Paro Yosef? He was in the middle of talking. Vayomer Paro Yosef, Re'ei nasati yoschal kol eretz Yisrael. Why is Paro? He was talking. Why are you telling me again, Vayomer Paro Yosef? So sometimes that means that there's been a change. Okay, I said one thing, now I'm changed. But he's continuing with the same conversation. So why does it say Vayomer Paro Yosef? Good question, right? Okay. So I heard Rabbi Meir Zilberberg, Shlita, he said like this. Imagine you go to Washington. You go to visit the White House. And you walk in, and President Biden says to you, hey, Lior. Says, how you doing? I want to tell you something, Lior. I'm getting rid of my vice president. She's kind of useless. You're the new vice president. And not only you're the vice president, I want you running the country. I don't know. I'm clueless. I don't know I can't even read a teleprompter. I want you running the country. I want you running the country. Everything. The only thing is I outrank you because I'm the president, but that's a name only. You're running the entire United States. Right? We'll have kosher food for you, a limousine, mezuzah, and what do you got? We got everything you can buy with a mikveh, and we'll have a minyan for you every day, everything. What would your reaction be? Shkoyach, that's what your reaction would be? Shkoyach? That's what your reaction would be? I'd be like, really? I mean, with a chauffeur? I would have a whole lot to say. Right? What's Yosef's reaction? Look back at Pasuk Mem. Ata tia al basi. You're going to be in charge of Valpicha Yishak Kolami. Raka Kise Goma. I'm putting you in charge of the whole country. I would have expected Yosef to look at him and say, well, gee, shucks. Wow. Yeah. No reaction. That's why the next pasuk, it's not Vayomer Paro Yosef Re'ei nasati yoschal kol eretz Yisrael. That's how you read the pasuk. Vayomer Paro Yosef. Re'ei nasati yoschal kol eretz Yisrael. Do you understand what just happened, kid? And you realize what I just did? That's why Paro wasn't meant to speak now. He wasn't meant to be speaking now. Yosef should have said something. Well, at least thank you, something. No reaction. Vayomer Paro Yosef. Hey, kid, look, do you understand what I just said? Nothing, not a word, no, nothing. Just nothing. You don't understand what I just told you? It's like a guy says, you just won $10 million of the lottery. Do you understand what $10 million means? You just nothing, no reaction. Like, Yahoo! Yeah, something. Nothing? You do a dance. So why doesn't Yosef react? And the answer is, remember Yosef, two guys in the pit? He says, hey, fellas, what's wrong this morning? How come you look so down in the dumps? And why isn't Yosef down in the dumps? What's the answer? Because to Yosef, it doesn't make a difference whether he's in a pit or whether he's the king. Ultimately, so I'm the king. So what? I still have to serve God. What's the difference if I serve God this way or if I serve God this way? Okay, it's more convenient this way. Okay, it's better to have a chauffeur than to have to walk. Well, we're nothing to celebrate over here. That just means I got greater responsibility. Now I haven't got any excuses not to make minyan. Now I haven't got any excuses to miss my daf yomi. There's nothing to stop me. I just got a higher level of responsibility, that's all. But ultimately, I'm living the same life. My life has got the same purpose, which is to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, okay, I certainly don't like being in a pit, right? But what are you celebrating? What, Yosef's looking forward to riding around in a chariot? Oh, good, I get that chariot ride I've always wanted. What's there to get excited about? A guy wins the lottery, what are you excited about? That means you got to give more tzedakah now. You got a higher level of responsibility. You got to be nicer to people. You haven't got an excuse to be in a bad mood anymore. You can't take it out on people. So all you got is another avodas Hashem. It's just another way of serving God. Just another way of serving. So he doesn't get what should I get excited about? Wait, Yosef's looking forward to some sort of what do you call good meal in Egypt? That's what he wants. Is what do you call? So Pharaoh can't understand that. That's why Yosef doesn't react. The guy says, so you're going to be the vice president of the United States. Oh, man. Tell me no. Oh, I don't want this responsibility. The Gedolim said you got to do it. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Do you know that when Uri Lopolyansky became the mayor of Yerushalayim, he's the one who founded Yad Sarah. Yad Sarah is the medical relief organization in Israel, famous medical relief. He's a frum guy. His son lives in my neighborhood. My son-in-law learned in his yeshiva. He was told by Rev Elyashiv they want him to be a candidate to be mayor of Yerushalayim, or from mayor of Yerushalayim. Elyashiv said, you have to take it. He says, I don't want to be the mayor. Oh no, I don't know the first thing. He says, this is what you have to do. This is what you have to do. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Right? Yeah. Oh, good, I get to be the mayor. Well, what's so great? Well, you know, kind of responsibility. You got a right. Are you sure you want that headache? So Yosef's got nothing to be. What are you so excited about? What is it? You got a little prestige in Egypt because they're going to lead you around in a chariot. That's what a Pharaoh can't understand, and that's why we find Yosef is the consistent Yosef all the way through, the same Yosef all the way through. That's a Yosef Hatzadik. Doesn't matter what the situation is. That's the lesson. The lesson is in life. Obviously, we want more conveniences. That's part of the problem with the world today. The world is so focused on conveniences and comfort. Got a microwave. You know, you got a good car. You know, you got that's a quieter car. But this is all convenience. Wait, that's what you're living for? You're living so that you could ride in a quieter, smoother car? That's what your life is about? That you understand? Where's the goal? Where are you trying to get to with it? Is this going to help me in my goal, or it's not going to help me? So they say that the test of wealth is more difficult than the test of poverty. A person's poor, so nobody, okay, we understand you're suffering, you know, and if you have a little, you know, have a few bad days, we understand. A guy who's rich got a big test. You got a line of poor people outside your house coming in, they're waiting to see you. It's not so simple to say, well, I have hours. Oh, you have hours, do you? Right? Coach Baruch says, I gave you money. I didn't give you money so you should have hours. I gave you money so you should take care of the poor people. I didn't give you money so that you should build an at-home entertainment center. Right? I gave you money so that you should help the poor. But that's a burden. You want to be Reb Chaim Kanievsky? Do you ever see what went on by Reb Chaim Kanievsky? Everybody, oh, he got so much honor. Honor. He didn't have 5 minutes to himself. 24 hours a day. That's what you want? You sure you want that? You should want that better. So Yosef, nothing to get excited about. Nothing to get excited. You win the lottery? Great, I won the lottery. Great. Now I could get, I'll be able to buy a car because I won the lottery. Good. So to wherever I'm going, so I'll be a little more convenient. That's something to celebrate. That's what you're getting excited about. That's what the Torah's telling you. All right.